I think I just turned my plane on for the first time. I'm pretty disappointed in how these terminals turned out, and it turns out it all stems from the tools I'm working with. Go figure. I'll likely be remaking these in an episode in the near future, but until then, I think they'll do the trick. Yikes. I am installing some fuse links to the shunt. Fuse links are essentially almost like a sacrificial piece of wire insulated with some fireproof insulation. That way, if you wind up drawing too much current, these little sections will burn up and eliminate the connection before the rest of the wire. So they sort of work like a fuse, hence the name fuse link. They are handy in a spot like this because they will eliminate the overcurrent situation on the front side of the firewall. And they're utilized in something like this because, they're utilized in a situation like this because they're incredibly reliable. Or at least that's what I'm told. These fuse links were made just before this segment, and it's just a 4 to 6 inch piece of wire, 4 gauges smaller than the rest of the wire, and it has a fiberglass insulation piece so that when this fuse link burns, it somewhat contains that heat. They're less clunky, smaller than a traditional fuse, ultra reliable, and perfect for a situation like this. I have 1 to 2 last connectors before I can get the whole system plugged in. That doesn't mean it's done. There are a few more connectors to be made. However, most of them are related to interfacing engine components and sensors, and I won't be able to do that until I have an engine. I'm going to get the last couple connectors that I can do done, and then I can pull this thing and start to think about mounting it in the plane. I'm going to listen to some music while I do this, and I guess you are too. Alexa, play my playlist.
Shuffling your music on Amazon Music.
This is a healthy sized bundle so far. This has all of the controls that are going to come from my stick grips, as well as switches and lighting and other stuff I'm going to interface with around the cockpit. It's kind of a cool one. Because of that, I'm going to leave it unshelled for a bit. I am anticipating there being some additional pins that have to go in this. So that's it for now. I've got just one last teeny one to go. And then I'm gonna probably clean up here and pull all this up. More packages. Screws. Ground brake. Don't even know if I want that anymore. This one's full. Just the dell clamps of like every size. Some screws and some bolts. Another copper bar. Small amount of additional white wire. A few more solder sleeves. Plugs. Fully insulated fast on terminals. And a new switch. At this point, I feel like my hardware drawer is robust, to say the least. I've ordered a lot of additional hardware. I don't want to dip into the stuff over there. It would suck to find that I need a screw, and I've used them all on extracurricular activities. I have continually ordered probably more than what I need for that same reason. I don't want to get to a part and have to slow things down because I've missed something. When you're placing an order, a couple extra bucks, though it adds up for an Adele clamp here and there, seems like a wise choice at the time. All right, with all of the bolts and screws and connectors and all of that, I got my work cut out for me, and I'm excited. I feel like we can really make some progress. So I'll pick up a little bit more, and then I'm going to get back to the plane. What a waste this was. Okay, first things first here. Some of these screws were to attach these to the plate, so I'm going to get those mounted and then flip it over, and we'll put that copper bar to use. So on the back side of this is where we're going to have essentially a bus bar with our copper bar here. I just need to take some measurements, cut and drill this out, and that'll attach all of these terminals to one another. I have the option with these fuse panels if I wanted to actually separate and create separate buses, if I wanted to have an always-on bus, for example, or an endurance bus. Currently, my plan is to not do that. My plan, which is malleable, by the way, just so you all know, but my plan is to simply have one bus and rely on my backup power system for any sort of endurance situation. That mixed with load shedding in an emergency, I think can get me to where I need to go. I'm gonna go ahead and cut and drill this strip, get these attached, and then I'm gonna see about mounting this in the plane. Installing the rack should be theoretically pretty simple. We all know nothing is very simple around here. There is one caveat to that. I have noticed that there's a slight bow in the sub panel, and that's kind of to be expected with as many modifications and material as we've removed from it. But I would like to take some of that bow out with these brackets that I'm installing, that I've fabricated. It should be easy enough to do based on where I drill the holes for the screws that will attach all this, but it's something that I've got to keep in mind while drilling those holes. Pretty happy with that first rack and how the fuse box are working. The radio is a little bit bigger of a stretch. The rack has required a little bit more modification to get it to house the components required as well as fit the area. It's just tighter on the pilot side of the airplane. There's a lot more switches and interfaces that result with a lot less space on the back side of the panel there. All right, things are moving along and it's getting exciting. The main bus now hooked up to the contactor, a step closer to being able to theoretically turn this thing on. I have a couple more things to secure up here, and then I think it's time to pull the harness once again from the table and start to attach it to the sub panel. Once again, anxiety runs high here with the wires just sort of piled in the cabin. But I'm working out a plan. I swear I'm working out a plan. I'm sure some of you see where I'm going with all of this. And you're probably thinking, don't do it, it's a really bad idea. But you know me and bad ideas. Technically, that will be the first time I turned on my plane, which is cool. Now, nothing's really hooked up except for that contactor, and it did bring life to the fuse panel, which again, nothing is hooked up, but it's on and there's power running. And if I did have things plugged in, they too would be on. That's pretty cool. We've proved it works. Now, honestly, it's time to, once again, disengage all the power. You don't want that live while I'm working on this. But it's a little bit of excitement to keep me moving. So getting the harness installed is by no means a install it and drop it, we're done. In fact, many of you are probably wondering, why are there still bread ties all over the damn thing? Well, the truth is, the harness isn't done. I have a number of connectors and a number of wires to run, and I don't want to run them independently of the harness. I want to keep everything bundled as closely as I can. However, there's a certain amount of this that has to be built in place, and you will see I have to continually run wires as I do that. There are elements that I didn't know the length of the run. There are elements that hadn't been put in place yet, and so this will continually be added to, especially once I get wings on and lights run and other things installed. So while the main portion of the harness is done, the twist ties will remain until I have everything wired up, and then I'll replace it either with lacing or with zip ties. At the same time, I'll likely redo a bunch of these cushion clamps and need to upsize them as the bundles grow larger. The idea is to get as much installed as I possibly can before I have to button this up. I don't know how much of that I can do without having an engine hanging off the front. The idea is I want to do the least amount of wiring when I don't have the access that I have now. But as you remember, I'm doing the avionics right now because the next step is gonna be to do the canopy, and that means I have to close all this up for good. I know there's gonna be portions of this where I kick myself for not better planning ahead, but I'm doing my best to plan ahead, and I'm doing my best to work ahead as far as I can. Again, to limit the amount of time I spend back under here swearing at past Ryan for not doing something.